Found yourself binge-watching Heated Rivalry and wondering what the hell happened to your self-control?
Shane Hollander, I wanted to introduce myself.
Well, same.
Okay.
Because somehow, one episode turns into three turns into six, and suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you're fully invested in the emotional lives of two hockey players. And the crazy part? It doesn't even feel accidental. It feels like you need to keep watching.
Yes.
That's not just because it's a good story, it's because Heated Rivalry is built in a way that keeps your brain hooked, through tension, chemistry, and just enough emotional chaos to keep you wanting more.
Not everything is about you, Hollander.
Stay tuned as we break down how this story became such a cultural phenomenon and why your brain refuses to let it go. If you like these kinds of deep dives, don't forget to subscribe. The story behind Heated Rivalry is actually pretty unexpected. It started with Rachel Reed, who didn't know how to publish her original story, so she turned it into fan fiction and posted it on Archive of Our Own. After it gained attention, she reworked it back into an original novel, which became part of the Game Changer series. From there, it quickly found a loyal audience, especially within the romance community.
So being boring is genetic.
Genetic.
Now here's where things could have easily gone wrong, but didn't. When Heated Rivalry got picked up for adaptation by Crave, they didn't try to water it down or make it more mainstream.
I can't do this.
Hollander.
I'm sorry.
Instead, they actually trusted the story, which is rare. Director Jacob Tierney leaned into what made the book work in the first place. It doesn't feel sanitized or overly polished. It feels real, a little chaotic, and very intentional. And that's a big reason why it hits so hard.
I think I like you maybe a little too much.
Don't. I wouldn't be able to go home again.
Which brings us to the actual story, because that's where things really start to pull you in. At its core, Heated Rivalry follows two hockey players, Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov. On paper, they're complete opposites. Shane is calm, controlled, always thinking 10 steps ahead.
Jouer au hockey pour le Metros.
Mr. Hollander.
Ilya is loud, impulsive, and says whatever's on his mind.
Fuck this shit.
I need to get laid. Let's go out.
Naturally, the media frames them as rivals, and at first, that's exactly what they are. But underneath all of that, there's way more going on. Both of them are dealing with pressure that goes far beyond hockey. Shane is constantly trying to live up to expectations,
Meeting a Swedish princess could be fun, right?
keeping everything in control to avoid messing up. Ilya, on the other hand, is carrying family pressure, personal trauma, and a whole persona he's built just to protect himself.
We get together, we fuck. It's simple.
And somehow, in the middle of all that, they find each other. What makes their dynamic so addictive isn't just the attraction, it's the tension, the constant push and pull. The fact that you know there's something deeper there, but they're not ready to face it yet. And once that tension is there, your brain is locked in. If their story was just rivalry turning into romance, it wouldn't hit the same. What really keeps you hooked is the fact that their relationship can't exist out in the open. Not in their world. Hockey culture is still heavily tied to hyper-masculinity,
You're straight up blushing, Ross.
Well, no. Never in life have I blushed. Russians do not do this.
and both Shane and Ilya know that being anything other than straight, tough, untouchable could seriously damage their careers. So instead of exploring what they feel, they hide it.
Great pass.
From the public, from their teams, and sometimes even from each other.
We are not anything. Go away, Hollander.
And that's where the tension really builds. Because physically, they connect almost instantly. There's no slow burn there. But emotionally, it's the complete opposite. That part takes years. They keep circling each other, getting close, pulling away, saying just enough but never everything.
But I also like you.
Lucky me.
And that imbalance between what they feel and what they allow themselves to admit is exactly what keeps you watching. It takes a long time before anything real is actually said out loud.
And it felt like we were something.
We can't be something, Hollander.
Most of their connection lives in the in-between moments. The pauses, the looks, the conversations that almost go somewhere,
I don't know that side of you at all.
and then don't. And as a viewer, you start filling in the gaps yourself. You know what they mean, even when they don't say it. You start noticing the small shifts, when something changes, when something almost slips through. And that's where the attachment builds. Because you're not just watching their story anymore, you're kind of participating in it. Trying to piece it together, waiting for them to finally catch up to what's already obvious to you. And once you're in that position, you're not going anywhere. While Shane and Ilya are stuck in this cycle of hiding and hesitation, Scott and Kip show a completely different version of what their story could look like. Their relationship is softer, more open, and eventually, public. And that contrast is important because it proves that a different outcome is actually possible, that you don't have to stay hidden forever. And for both Shane and Ilya, seeing that play out in real time starts to shift something. It plants the idea that maybe, eventually, they could have that too.
I'm coming to the cottage.
It also keeps the show from feeling like it's trying to represent every queer experience in one storyline. Instead, it gives space for multiple perspectives, and that makes everything feel way more real. So why is it so hard to stop watching Heated Rivalry? A big part of it comes down to how your brain reacts to anticipation. Dopamine isn't just about feeling good. It's mainly about expectation. Your brain gets triggered by what could happen next, not just what already happened. And this show constantly plays with that. There's always something unresolved. Because of that, your brain never really feels done. It just keeps wanting to see what happens next. Then there's the connection you build with the characters. As humans, we're wired to understand and feel with other people. And that doesn't suddenly turn off when the people are fictional. So while watching Shane and Ilya, you're not just observing them. You're following their emotions, their choices, their tension. You're emotionally tracking them. That's why it can feel so personal. Another important factor is something called the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain doesn't like unfinished situations. When something is left open, like a cliffhanger or an unresolved conversation, your mind keeps coming back to it. It wants closure, and that's exactly what keeps you thinking. Just one more episode. When all of that keeps building without fully resolving, it creates a strong pull to keep watching. It's not because you lack discipline. It's simply your brain responding to a story that's designed to keep you engaged. What also makes Heated Rivalry stand out is the tone. Even though the story deals with pressure, fear, and hiding who you are, it doesn't turn their story into something tragic or hopeless, which a lot of queer stories unfortunately still do. It keeps moving towards something better. There's always this underlying feeling that things can work out, that they deserve to.
I love you.
And that changes everything.
Holy shit.
Because you're not just watching for the drama, you're watching because you want to see them get to a place where they can finally be open, safe, and happy. All of that buildup, the tension, the hiding, the almost moments, finally leads somewhere. And what makes the payoff so strong is that it doesn't go the way you might expect. When Shane is forced to face his parents, it could have easily turned into a big, dramatic rejection. But it doesn't.
Can we just sit down, please?
The tension is there, of course, but the focus shifts to something more real. Misunderstanding, guilt, and eventually, acceptance. Instead of punishment, you get conversation.
When did this happen?
Instead of distance, you get connection. And that's what makes it hit so hard. Because after everything they've been through, the resolution isn't about something going wrong. It's about things finally being okay. It feels earned, it feels grounded. And most importantly, it gives both the characters and the audience something they've been waiting for the entire time: relief.
I'm so proud of you.
Even though the ending feels satisfying, it's not really the end. The story continues in the long game, where Shane and Ilya are still together, but still not fully out. And that creates a new kind of tension. Ilya starts to feel more and more frustrated with having to hide, while Shane stays focused on his career and keeping things the way they are. So instead of, will they or won't they, it becomes, how long can this actually last? So if you've been wondering why you got so invested in Heated Rivalry, it's not random. It's a mix of strong storytelling and how your brain naturally responds to it. The tension keeps you curious, the characters make you care, and the unresolved moments keep pulling you back in. It's just what happens when a story understands both emotion and psychology really well, and maybe that's exactly why Heated Rivalry isn't just popular. It's something people keep coming back to.
My boyfriend?
I mean, yes. I think so, probably.
So yeah, if you thought it was just you, it's not. If this story has been living in your head rent-free, now you know why. If you want more breakdowns like this, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.